Well, the past few days have been the busiest on our political calendar this year. The DA launched its manifesto in a virtual event over the weekend, while the EFF gathered its followers in Johannesburg. The ANC earlier made electoral promises in Tshwane, as you just heard. To help us answer whether or not there's anything different in these manifestos, Associate Professor of Sociology at the University of the Free State, Professor Sethulego Matebesi, joins us. Prof, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Since the ANC, of course, announced its promises tonight, let me first get your reaction to what we heard. Much of the same or anything different?
Hi, good evening, Shahan, and good evening, South Africans. For me, it's much of the same. I mean, if you go and listen to the 2016 speech of the former president, you will clearly see some evidence that today's speech was actually a repetition. But what stood out for me was the selection of Tshwane, very significant, and also a weekday that the African National Congress decided to launch their manifesto compared to the other political parties, because I strongly believe that the EFF and the Democratic Alliance over the weekend had to contest with the entertainment that South Africans have become accustomed to over weekends. And the ANC perhaps wanted to reach maximum impact, and that's why they went for a weekday, and which is today. But fact of the matter is, for me, the manifesto is just a vicious recycle of what we've heard in the past.
So would you say the ANC is out of touch with the reality on the ground, or that it's become arrogant knowing that South Africans generally do vote for the party because of their loyalty?
No, I won't say the ANC is out of touch, but you know, with power, complacency comes in. And I think what really bothers me is that even with the concerted effort, you know, with the fight against corruption and all that, corruption is continuing unabated at all levels. And that is a worrying factor, that it seems as if there is still political protection for people who are implicated, who are involved in corruption. And that is unacceptable, because people do not realize the consequences or the impact of corruption. They're denying future generations, you know, access to school. They deny future generations access to proper housing. And all this will have a huge impact on other social ills, such as crime and all that, already, as we've seen in South Africa. I think what happens with the African National Congress, yes, as you correctly also stated, is that to a certain extent, I think they still believe that, and this is what is going to happen, despite the challenges that an organization is facing, the ANC is still going to get a significant slice of the votes from South Africans, and that's actually a breeding ground for complacency, where they can come to these particular platforms, make promises, but at the end of the day, do not deliver on that. I can tell you, if the ANC is going to be one day in future under tremendous pressure from the electorate, we will see a different ANC. But because of the electoral support that they have, they can afford to do the mistakes that they've been doing.
Yeah. All right. Let's compare the three manifestos we've heard over the past 3 days. We have the Democratic Alliance, the EFF, presenting their promises at the weekend, and of course the ANC tonight. Is there anything different that they're offering to South Africans?
No, not much, but we all know that Democratic Alliance goes for a much more liberal, you know, economy and approach. The ANC did touch on the issue of land, but you're not going to go far, because you can, you know, afford and give land over to people. But fact of the matter is, if you've got such a weak economy, which is also crippled by the performance of councillors, then the question is what is going to happen in terms of jobs. I don't know how these other parties are going to create jobs, because we still have a situation where the EFF have just been, a kingmaker in some of the municipalities. So I don't know to what extent will their manifesto work for them. But I foresee a situation where, once again, the EFF in certain municipalities will definitely, even if they don't outright win a municipality, they will still pull their weight in terms of determining the route that those municipalities will take. But if you look at their manifestos, there's not much difference, because the boiling issue, the elephant in the room for many South Africans, it is job creation. And we can't talk about, the creation of jobs as in the case of the African National Congress, whereas we all know the jobs that will be created, whether decent or not decent, will be for those with political affiliation and affiliation to the ruling party. And that's why, for many people, I strongly believe that it will be a continuing eroding of trust in our public representatives at local government level.
All right, let's look at some of the things that the EFF has offered, which many would argue is different to the other promises we heard. And one of it was low-cost housing close to city centres. I even saw it was trending on social media that Julius Malema is promising to build low-cost housing right in Sandton or next door. Are those promises actually possible, though, even if the party does take control of a metro? Or are these promises that are basically wild and can't be fulfilled?
Well, I strongly believe that perhaps for a party like the EFF, they have to dream. And why not dream big? But that's why I didn't even want to mention that as a difference, because for me, the question is, how are they going to realize that, even if they can win, Joburg Metro, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane? The question is, how are they going to afford that? Because, to build so many houses around the city, why are people not afforded an opportunity to climb the economic ladder and then decide where they want to stay? What political statement do you want to make if you go that route? Because South Africa is free, nobody is forced to stay in an area where they can't. But obviously there are cost implications. So for me, I can't see that any metro will be able to sustain such laborious plans to house workers or whoever next to our economic hubs.